children come into this world hating vegetables, and we force them. They're forced to eat them. I used to chase them around the plate for like 3 hours until they were cold, horrible, but my mother made me eat them because they were good for me. But we innately knew when we came down the chute that we shouldn't go so far down this path. So most kids hate greens. It's not by accident.
Maggie, how did you find carnivore?
It was a progression from vegan right through to the other end of the train track. Station after station after station, I tried it all to alleviate migraine headaches. And that has been my 55 plus years of pain and suffering. And whilst I've tried various things along the line, they work for maybe a week or 10 days. And I think, wow, this is great because I'm used to having at least was used to having a couple of migraines a week, which would mean S4 medication or bedridden and vomiting as well. I mean, all of the things that come with really severe migraines. And then I'd be back to where I started, so I'd go on a search for something else. So hence vegan, lacto-ovo, whatever, up to keto, and here I am at this point.
Wow, so you really did everything.
No, I didn't, because I hadn't done carnivore, did I, at that
Oh,
stage?
okay.
I thought
Okay,
I'd
good
done.
point.
I thought I'd done everything. I've gone to doctors. I've gone alternative. I've had acupuncture. I've done all the Chinese and the Ayurvedic, and eventually, it lasts sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a few days, whatever. But nothing has actually alleviated the pain, the actual onset of the migraine, like being carnivore.
And so you've been carnivore for how long now?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And in that 6 months, have the migraines completely stopped? Have they lessened?
They haven't completely stopped, but the pain level isn't anything like it used to be. I can still function. And the medication that I have, S4 in Australia is pharmacy only. Um, with that, I've now cut that in half. And sometimes they're triangular tablets, and I've got a cutter. So I cut them in half, and sometimes I even can have half a quarter. And it's just enough to kill it. And that's huge, because being able to actually function is the more important thing.
Wow. And so you put it down to the plants, basically, that
I've had suspicions for many, many years that carbohydrates were the problem. And I know I did a test, I can't even remember, it'd be 30 years ago now, 35 years ago. I would have toast for breakfast and a cup of coffee. And after about 3 days of doing that, I'd end up with a migraine. So after a little while, I started to think, well, what am I eating? Because migraines can be food related, and a lot of times are. So I'd do the repeat of the same scenario, and I got the same answer. I'd be in bed with a migraine. So okay, I just said, well, I'm a carbohydrates. Very hard to give up when you don't have the knowledge base as to why you should give them up. But as we went down the track, um, I kept saying, because when I went to Italy, I was eating pizza, pasta, and 3 weeks went by and I didn't get a headache. So I had to start thinking, what on earth is going on here? So the very easy and quick answer to that is glyphosate, or chemicals, the residual chemical. Uh, American-based flour and Australian-based flour are very highly concentrated with chemical because they spray them before harvest, blah, blah, blah. And then one day I was on Facebook, and David Avocado Wolf had a section, and he said, don't think you're crazy. You're not gluten intolerant. You're actually chemical glyphosate intolerant. I said, yes. I'd already come to that conclusion, but of course everybody said, you're crazy. But that's what I believe in my case, that if I can, and I could buy Italian flour, and I did at one point, I didn't have a problem. So you have to question sometimes the testing that you do or the testing that's not done. So, but yeah, and I also have lots of allergies as well, which is yeah, obviously all interrelated.
And have those allergies, lessened as well?
Uh, I can't say that they've lessened because, well, it's unfortunately it's spring-ish here, and we've got lots of blossoms. So itchy eyes, runny nose, sneezing, the hay fever type stuff. And because I guess I'm still in a pretty sensitive situation in that sense that my body does react. Um, I got fire ant bites many years ago, and I just came out in one big hive. My tongue thickened. I got quite scared. I was in Thailand at the time and raced to the car, grabbed a couple of antihistamines because that's all I had. Took those, and then I was about 40 kilometres from home. I was at a wildlife sanctuary. Raced home. Went to the. It settled down after a while. I took like 4 antihistamines within the space of 2 hours, and the hives didn't go away, but the thick tongue went. That was a bit scary. Went to the hospital next day, and he said, "Oh, I said you've just got food allergies." And I said, well, "What about these ant bites on my feet? Could they have had played a part?" But yeah, the hives came up. I didn't know. It's the first time it's happened, and I was sitting on a hay bale, as you do. And I thought, oh God, I've got ants. And I thought I had ants crawling on my thighs. So I said to the girl I was with, I've got to go check this out. So I raced off to the bathroom and nothing there except this bright red welt. And I thought, oh. And of course, by that stage, it actually had travelled everywhere. That's happened more than once. And that set off a whole regime of sitting down, having a cup of coffee with someone, and half my lip would swell, just go boom, like that. It'd tingle and it'd just swell up and it'd be there for about maybe 12, 15 hours. It'd just dissipate. Or it might be my eye. I've got some lovely photos. It looks like I've been hit. Just randomly on my face, particularly the lips and the eyes. So there's an allergy, still something in that hasn't happened for a long, long time. I think maybe I've moved through that. But so I'm only left at the moment with the annoying hay fever type allergy symptoms. I don't take antihistamines very often.
Mm. Yeah, I thought I was free of the hay fever as well, but, as soon as I
That
got close to being in Melbourne again, it was like, "No, I'm not over this."
Yeah, and I haven't actually worked out what the trigger is here. It's humid. It should be good because humidity generally helps the hairs, right? But I don't have adenoids or tonsils. They got ripped out when I was 3 because I was such an allergy child. So then I think about that and think, I've got my first line of defense is gone. So sort of understandable. I can accept that that probably has some bearing on why I'm more sensitive through the nasal and asthmatic conditioning. So can't go backwards, so we have to live with what we have.
Yeah. So, how are you eating day to day? Like, how many meals and what's the menu?
The menu is static. I'm a butter girl. I have little tiny cubes of butter like the size of my little fingernail all chopped up in the fridge. And when I feel like pecking, because sometimes about 5 o'clock I think, oh, yeah, I could do with something. I go and have a cube of butter, just let it melt in my mouth, and that solves that one. I have 3 eggs for lunch, fried eggs with butter. Sometimes I sprinkle a little cheese on, but I only use salt. I don't use pepper because I don't need it. And in the evening, I have steak. So that's it every day. And I look forward to it. I look at the clock and think I'm not hungry yet, but I'm going to have 3 eggs and cheese today, or I'm going to have no cheese or whatever. So, and my husband, who loves his food, he's trying very hard to follow some of this, and he's doing quite well because he was a carbaholic, and he's doing reasonably well. He's lost weight. His health, I think, has improved in many senses. So, but he still gets the nibbles. He runs into the room and he comes out with nuts, or into the kitchen. He comes out with a handful of nuts. Um, I don't know. I he can't. I don't know that he actually gets the fact that I'm not hungry and I'm not interested in anything but these this food group. Being Tasmanian, I was brought up on lamb and 3 veg. I hated vegetables from the beginning, and again, made me think. Children come into this world hating vegetables, and we force them. They're forced to eat them. I used to chase them around the plate for like 3 hours until they were cold, horrible, but my mother made me eat them because they were good for me. Um, but we innately knew when we came down the chute that we shouldn't go so far down this path. So most kids hate greens. It's not by accident.
Yeah, you don't hear parents having to chase their kids around the dinner table to get them to eat the meat. It's the veggies, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'd love my meat. We used to go to
Mm.
a butcher that I believe is still there in Launceston, and we'd have good quality meat. It was lamb, beef predominantly. Um, Chicken and pork weren't really on the menu, although they appeared occasionally. And I love my sausages. They were made by this particular butcher. I mean, my memory of them is that they were number one, A1 type, So I've always loved sausages. And yeah, it was the vegetables. It was always the vegetables. And we weren't a dessert family, so sugar was never highly included in the diet in that sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid as well, we didn't have desserts. I mean, back in those days, you didn't have money for that kind of stuff, right?
I think it was predominantly that, but I don't know why my parents didn't. I mean, I followed suit, obviously, with my kids, but it's not necessary. I mean, to me, it's a treat. And that's where it should stay, because once you get used to it, you become the sugarholic, and we know sugar's more addictive than heroin or cocaine, one or the other. And you're developing a habit that's killing you without knowing it. So, but
Yeah.
food wise,
So basically, you're doing 2 meals a day?
basically 2 meals a day. Yeah. If I'm busy, I tend to be able to skip quite easily. I have a couple of coffees a day. I'm a cream and butter person. That's what they're the two dairy part, and a bit of cheese, not much cheese. So I have black coffee with a good dollop of cream in that. I use what I can get here. We are restricted because I'm not in a dairy country, so it's all imported stuff. So I think I've got Anchor. I can get Anchor and Paul's brands here. Depends when the ship comes in, which brand it is. So yeah, it's not ideal because it does have fillers and emulsifiers, but 80/20, I do as best I can. So
So you're in Penang.
yeah.
So in Penang, like, it's easy enough to get beef and
Oh yeah. We can go direct to there's a wholesaler here, and we used to go there and buy frozen either New Zealand, Australian beef and lamb. And now I've found one of the supermarkets. It's a better quality chain, and I found some. They call it knuckle. Now my head doesn't go to knuckle. Is this? But it's actually you've got the rump area, and so you've got, I think it's the rump, and then underneath the rump is another muscle, big muscle thing called knuckle. Makes no sense to me, but you can find it on meat diagrams. And they used to. I found it in a polystyrene tray, of course, all 200 grams. So I bought half a dozen of them and I tried them, and they're really good. They're on the chewier side. They're not the melt in your mouth, but that's okay because it takes a little bit longer, so you think more about it. Um, Now I buy the whole. I go in there. They're not frozen. They're air. What do they call them? Uh, Air chilled. So I buy the whole knuckle, and I get them to chop it up. Then I come home and I weigh them up into. I've got um, that machine that sucks the air out, whatever it's called, and I make packs of around 250 grams because I find 250 is the best volume for me to have at one time. So any more than that is overeating. Sometimes if it's only a 200 gram, I sort of think, oh, maybe yeah, maybe I'll go and have an egg because I don't feel like it's quite enough. And it's not that I think about how much I should eat. It's like they say on Carnivore. I mean, Anthony Chaffee says, eat till you're full. Or they all say, eat till you're full. So that I've just noticed that's about where I'm at. I mean, my body size, my requirement.
Well, speaking of that, and having tried many diets over your life, um, do you feel that now that you're on carnivore, this is the time where you're kind of least craving food in
I
between
don't,
meals?
I don't crave food at all now.
Mm.
Um, sometimes I can have chocolate at the best of times, even in the past. I could have chocolate in the fridge for 3, 4, 5 months and not touch it. But then, you know, the dam would break and then off I'd go. Maltesers are my one thing that I do love. And I walk past them in the supermarket and I said, stay there. You're not coming home with me. But in the past, I would pick them up and eat them. Just small packets. There are only, maybe 10 or 20 in them. Yeah, and once I start eating them, I've got to eat them till they're finished. But that there's none of that. And number one, it's not so much that it's surprising to me, but it's not tempting me. And of course, other people say, "Oh, have this, have that, have a bit of cake, a little." What do they say? A little anything in moderation. And I said, "No, I don't want it. I actually don't want it." So that's, I think, one of the best parts for me is the fact that I'm not tempted. Not, I mean, I've got a strong will anyway, but unless it's Maltesers, of course. But with all of that being said, I don't want to eat because I'm not hungry, and I have a glass of water, half a glass of water, if I remotely think that I might be hungry,
Yeah.
and that's enough.
It's really nice to have that kind of just level energy the whole time, like no
Yes,
ups and downs, right?
yeah, it is. Um, it's also really good to. I think I always slept really well, but it took me hours and hours to get to sleep. I had low thyroid function, hypothyroid. I've never had medication for it. I don't go to doctors because really, I worked at Bond Medical School for a period of time when it opened up, and that gave me even less faith in the whole medical fraternity. Um, but I have found a doctor here who is what you call integrative or functional medicine, and he will go herbs before anything else. And I found him because I wanted some herbs for adrenal fatigue, which was happening to me because we moved house and I was just go, 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 and not taking the necessary care. And then we started talking, and I got to understand where he came from. And I was in there one day getting more of the herbs, and I heard him speaking to a patient. It was during COVID times, and she wanted to have a repeat of her prescription. He just kept saying, "No, you try these herbs." And I'll go, "Yeah, this is a good guy." So yes, it's nice to know there is somebody if I need a doctor who's not going to say this, this, and this. Now, in saying that about this particular doctor, when I started the carnivore, I fast periodically, up to 10 days on water, and in more recent times I've introduced just pure coconut water into it as well. And usually I try to do 10 days. I get to 9, sometimes I get to 10, but this time I got to 8 days, and I thought no, because I'd already done all this research about carnivore. We'd been watching so much, and while I was fasting, I was just basically vegging out in front of the carnivore television. And I went off out of the diet straight into carnivore, and I didn't know how this is going to work because you really need to be very delicate coming out of a fast. And in the vegan and vegetarian world, there's a process that is very gentle, and it takes 2 to 3 days to get into full eating mode again. And I'm thinking, what can I start with? A butter, that's a bit heavy on the gut. A steak. So I went with eggs, and I didn't have any of the typical symptoms that your people mention. All I had was after I ate, I had indigestion, the burn, And that lasted maybe about 5, 6 days, and then it was just gone. So doing what I did, um, yes, the heartburn was part of the going carnivore stuff, but it was probably straight off an 8 day, in that case, it was 8 day fast. My body was going, hey, what are you doing to me? But then all of a sudden it just kicked in and said, yeah, this is good. And in that time, in this last 6 months, I don't know how much weight I would have lost in the 8 days, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 kilos, possibly. But I'm down 11 kilos. Yeah. So I've got a whole new wardrobe because I keep clothes. They don't fit, so I buy the next size up. I'm a yo-yo weight person, and that's because of the thyroid. Right? Yeah, easy to put on, hard to take off. But I didn't feel a thing. I just kept doing what I was doing, and I got on the scales one day and I went, oh, wow. So, I actually got on the scales this morning for maybe every 2 weeks, and it's gone down again. So I don't know. I know my body will set. It'll get to a point and it will stabilize. I thought I was there at 58.5, but now I'm like 57 too. So I don't know what I'm meant to be, but I've got a personal trainer now twice a week, and he pushes me pretty hard. I'm, for my age, I'm actually doing extremely well. So,
Is it okay to ask your age?
yeah, I'm 73.
73.
Mm.
Okay.
And
I
I,
hope,
I,
when I get to 73, I hope I'm looking as good as you. I think I probably look older than you do.
well, and I haven't even played with that thing on the screen where I can actually tone myself into looking young. I thought about it and I thought that's cheating.
So at this stage, 6 months in, are you feeling like,
Oh,
I'm
amazing.
happy to stay this way?
I can't see any reason not to stay where I'm at. Not to say I've got boundless energy. That's not so. I'm more energetic. I don't have boundless energy because I think we have an age-related situation going on as well. So um, I'm known to have nana naps, hour and a half in the afternoon. My circadian rhythm has always been late to bed, late to rise. So midnight is average for me to actually try to get to sleep. Sometimes I'm awake till 2. Um, I generally wake up naturally 7:30, between 7:30 8:30. More likely, let's say 8 o'clock as a cook. I'm retired. It doesn't matter. I have no commitment. If I have a commitment, I have no problem getting up and functioning. So that's big. Um, I think the added salt in my diet. I don't have cramp anymore, and if I do, I have to up. I know it's salt, and I have to up the ante on that one. And that happened to me yesterday. I had cramp during the night, and I know yesterday I had a salt terrible day because one salt shaker didn't. I've got an electric one, and the Himalayan pink is too damp for it, so it stuck. So then I got the other one out that is it's actually black Himalayan and smells like rotten eggs, but it's tastes really good. Um, and the lid came. It's one of those ones you buy in the supermarket. It's got the shaker thing on it, so you just the whole thing. The bottom fell off it, and it just unscrewed itself. So,
And how
uh,
must that have smelt?
well, it wasn't very nice, but and I thought, okay, fine. Just so then I had to go and get a couple of pinches of um, the ground down Himalayan pink and just use that. But because I know how many squirts, and I know how many, if I'm using the electric one, you know how long you need to use it. So yeah, so I didn't have enough, and actually I did get cramps. So it just again points out how serious knowing what your body needs really is, and understanding that cramp means a lack of salt.
Yeah, and it's very nice to be at the point where you're more in tune with your body, so you realize, "Oh, this is missing." Because
Yes, yeah.
on a regular diet, we've got so much going on and so much going into our bodies, we don't know what's going on, right?
And people tend, as we understand, people don't listen to their bodies. They defer to their doctors. They defer to the nutritionist. They defer to the TV. They defer to somebody who said somebody was perfectly good and it worked for them. So they imagine, I mean, we don't take responsibility. We are always deferring that responsibility out. And if we don't, how can we possibly know? How many people know where their liver's actually, what side their liver's on? How many people know where their heart and stomach lie in the chest cavity? Even those, and lungs, where do the lungs start? Where do they finish? Basic stuff. And if you knew it and you're having taking a deep breath and something hurts in this area, you can say, oh, well, that was my right lung or something. At least you've got a starting point. When you go to the doctor, they say, what's wrong with you? And you say, well, I don't know. I've got a pain here. If it hurts breathing, it's clearly lungs. But yeah, it's yeah, we've just had it too easy. Everything's handed to us. We believe it. It's the sheep mentality, which is a shame. I've been a I've been a rebel since birth, so I've always managed to find a path and investigate and have different opinions. I'm not frightened to have different opinions, and I'll argue my point, and it's only my point. It's my opinion, but at least it gives somebody else an opportunity to maybe. My favourite saying to people is, "Have you looked at the other side of the coin? Have you got a double-headed coin?" Because there's another story on the underside. And this was particular through the COVID era when we were talking about that. You've got this opinion because it's been force-fed, but there is another side to this, and have you looked at it? And the answer, it's to any question. The question's their belief system. They're not prepared to look at the other side.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like if you walk into a room and there's two people fighting, and your natural inclination would probably to be to side with the person who looks weakest in that situation, right?
In all
But
probability.
at the end of the day, there's always two sides to any particular story, right? So if you actually sat down and listened to both sides, you'd go, well, actually, there's some truth in both on both sides. There's some gray areas here, right?
Yeah. I'm a Caesar Milan watcher. I had a dog. I had a golden retriever, and I learned a lot from Caesar before he came into our lives. And the other day I saw one, and this couple had some gigantic, not Saint Bernard, but something really big like that, a Mastiff, I think, and a Chihuahua. And it was the Chihuahua, this tiny weeny little thing, that was the problem, not the big dog. And people think, oh yeah, look, they've got that really big dog. No wonder. They immediately have the opinion because big dogs are dangerous. And that's how, this is your two people in the room. The meek and mild one might be the Chihuahua, who is stirring up all they can to create bedlam, and then they turn around and say, it wasn't me, and look at the dog, that big one, he did it.
Exactly.
If you've had
Yeah.
kids, you know this. If you've had two kids, you definitely know it. If you've got three, you definitely know that one of them makes the bullets and one of them fires the bullets. So who do you blame? Who do you reprimand? So this is the
Yeah.
same in this world that we live in.
Right.
Unless they look at the other side and say, well, the meek and mild might be the dirty player. And in this case, the vegan and the carnivore. And I'm actually very thrilled to see the number of vegans who have come over to carnivore, because most of them do look like they need a pint of blood. You know.
So yeah, not so much in the other direction though. There's not so many carnivores that go vegan.
No, it's funny that I think that especially the ones like me who've had the experience from one end of the spectrum to the other. Um, it's This one has got logic attached to it. And once you start to do the research, and that's what I would advise anyone who's thinking of this, do the research. Take 6 months if necessary. Try and do keto. Cut back on the carbs because the carbs equal sugar. You say, oh, I don't eat much sugar, but if you're eating carbs, you're eating sugar. Get them to learn. People need to understand how that all ties in together. And I've got people here I know that they're desperately ill with autoimmune. And one lady can't walk, she's got rheumatoid arthritis. And she won't change. She doesn't want to change. It's too hard. She keeps saying, oh, but you're really strong and disciplined. Well, my health is so important to me that why would I compromise something that is going to make me like an old person? I want to be healthy when I die. To me, that would be the epitome of perfection, is to be able to skip into my coffin and go on to the next level, whatever it is. But these people are looking like they're hobbling towards a coffin. They can barely get in and out of cars, and I have to say that some of them are younger than me. In fact, probably quite a lot are, and especially in the arthritis and all those sorts of things. So some of it's mindset. I have this crazy mindset, so um, not to say I don't get my downtimes, I do, and I get really pissed off and angry. But for the most part, I feel my headspace is in a good place. I like to go against the system. I like the challenge. I daren't go back to Australia. They'll probably throw me in jail. Especially if they start watching various things that I have been doing and not what I post. Um, I can be a bit naughty that way and push the buttons, but it's why not? I
Yeah.
can. I don't believe I'm overstepping the mark.
So Maggie, if people want to reach out to you, how can they get in contact? Do you have any social media?
I I'm trying to get off social media. Yeah, I'm avoiding prison time. I think email's the best, and it's Maggie, Maggghee at proton.me.
No worries.
That's
Uh,
And if they do, I mean, I'm quite happy to get onto WhatsApp or Zoom calls or whatever calls. I'm happy to talk to people if they want to have any leg up, open a door, assess the doors that are in front of them, and say, how do I know what to do? Because I think fear is the biggest problem that people are facing. Doesn't matter what it is, but if you have the thought to try carnivore, do it for 30 days. See the difference. Notwithstanding the first 2 weeks that are probably going to be awful, but you'll notice differences. And yeah, if you want to be healthy in your old age, which is what we all want, and potentially live to 120, although in this world it may not be so nice, but yeah, I mean, just feeling good in yourself it's so important.
Agreed.
Mm.
Um, so I'll include your email in the show
Okay.
notes.
Okay.
Maggie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. I hope I've hit a nerve somewhere. And thank you for what you do.